Welcome! And on today's show, I get to exclusively review not 1, 2, but 3 limited edition Seiko divers. But first, Seiko! Yes, and today's shot comes from 3:30. Well, first of all, let's talk about that beautiful Seiko SNKL41K1. And it's sitting in the middle of an absolute power brekkie, isn't it? He's got that ever-reliable Seiko 5 on a very well-made looking leather strap. He obviously means business, his watch says it, and his breakfast says it, and I'm really grateful for you tagging me in. If you'd like to be on next week's show, all you gotta do, find me on Instagram here and tag me in on one of your Casio or Seiko posts. Who knows? Next time, the star of the show could be you. Seiko. Yes, feel extremely honoured to have these beautiful watches in full review on my channel. And
Get your watch out.
Well, I thought I'd represent today.
I am wearing the army.
Reissue SNJ025. Nothing says let's get stuck in more than a Seiko Tuna diver. And if you've got one with solar power, you've got yourselves an action stunner. First of all, I have to say a big thank you to Francis & Gay Jewellers. They have very kindly sent these 3 watches in for me to critique. Now, F&G have a wide variety of beautiful watches that you can see on their website. Sign up to the website and you guys automatically get 10% off.
Lovely.
Not only that, if you email Ryan and tell him I sent you, you may very well end up get a very special gift with your watch purchase. Something like this one. Only while stocks last, mind. All the links will be in the description below. Okay, 3 very popular Seiko divers that have been given a limited edition makeover. I'm going to show you a Samurai, a Tuna, and a Monster. So first of all, the Monster came out in the year 2000 and was nicknamed the Monster because of the way it looks. As you can see, it's big, it's bold, it's beastly. Look at the indices, shaped like shark's teeth. Now let's have a look at the Tuna. The first one came out in 1975 and the first quartz version came out in 78. This nicknamed the Tuna because it sort of looks a little bit like a can of tuna. And finally, the Samurai, which came out in 2004 and was discontinued in 2008. But backed by popular demand, it came out again in 2017. This is named the Samurai because of its samurai sword-looking handset. Now, as I said at the start of the show, these 3 watches I have today are limited editions and have been inspired by the adventures of night diving. Or Daffy Duck. It will make sense in a minute. Anyway, let's show you these watches, give them the MWC once over, and then I'll tell you which one I prefer, and then you can tell me which one you do. Are you Seiko ready? Let's go! Okay, so the first watch on the table is the Tuna. Doesn't it look cool? It has this awesome stealth look to it.
And I already love it.
Orange minute hand really pops out at you straight away. And that awesome faux patina, which you don't see a lot in Seiko watches. Very clean looking watch, isn't it? Built for purpose underwater. And I really love that classic looking SKXy type dial. The Tuna has that plastic shroud that goes around the outside of the stainless steel case. By looking at the seconds hand, you can see that this is a quartz watch. It's solar powered, which means you're not going to need to change out a battery,
which I extremely appreciate.
One thing to mention with this watch and with the other 2 watches is we do have Hardlex crystal. Some of you might not be happy with that, but I've had no problem with Hardlex in the past. Bring on the Hardlex. Okay, so let's take a look at the Samurai. And this is a more traditional looking watch. Very nice looking. It's a big boy. As you can probably tell, there is a black theme here. And the stainless steel on all 3 watches have been black hard coated.
Whatever that means.
Some sort of PVD coating, I reckon, but it sure does make the watch look cool. Again, we've got that awesome orange minute hand, the faux patina, different dial. I'd say this watch looks a bit more modern. Love that knurled crown at 3 and those small crown guards. And the colours of the bezel look superb. There are a lot of different angles with this Samurai watch. The lugs jut out from the case and they also angle down, which I think is going to make for a really good fit on my little tiny wrist. And finally onto the Monster. Well, it's definitely not as big or bold looking as the originals were, that's for sure. We don't have teeth for hour markers anymore, and it's not big and bold looking anymore, really. I do love the shape of the case, which integrates in with that bezel. Again, this is a fascinating design. I have never seen a bezel integrated into the case like this. I can see that it's quite a big watch, but those lugs are so tiny. I think it's going to wear really well. I have to say, on first impressions, I'm not that keen on this Cyclops, but I really thought I wasn't going to like the Monster, but it turns out
I actually quite like it.
Right, let's give you 3 spec checks. For the Tuna, it's a 46.5 diameter case. It has a lug-to-lug of 45.3. It's only got a thickness of 11.8 millimeters. And it has a lug width of 22 millimeters. For the Monster, we've got a diameter of 42.5 millimeters, a lug-to-lug of 48, and a thickness of 13.5 millimeters. The lug width is the same at 22. And finally, the Samurai, with a diameter of 43.8 millimeters, lug to lug of 48.6, a thickness of 13.4, and the same lug width at 22. So all 3 watches are above my limits. I tend to go for watches that are 40 and below, but Seiko do have this magic, don't they, of being able to make big watches fit on small wrists. So I'm intrigued. So let's talk about the straps quick. They are exactly the same on all 3 watches. Really well done silicone. I'd say the texture of the silicone was better than my Seiko Ani. I love the pattern of the inside of the strap. It's going to make the strap a little bit more breathable on the wrist. And as you can see, the keeper and the tang buckle is also coated black stainless steel.
Very smart.
If you can't tell by now, these 3 watches are on the Prospex line of Seikos. Prospex meaning professional specification. Yet these are proper diving tools, ISO certified, ready for action in the deepest, darkest of waters. Now, for most of us, the only time we'll get liquid on our watches is if we spill our cup of tea.
Ah, Seiko. Or over enunciate.
But it's nice to know that actual divers would wear this watch. So that means they have a screw down crown and a screw down case back. The case backs are very similar on all 3. The only part of the watch that is not black, it's stainless steel, and we have that awesome Seiko wave logo in the middle. Let's talk about the bezel, shall we? All 3 are unidirectional and have 120 clicks to them. They are stainless steel with a black hardened coating around them. All 3 are completely different looking and have their own feel to them. But which one's the best? Welcome to the World Bezeling Federation, dedicated to finding the best bezel on a watch. 3 rounds, the look, the grip, and the fidgetability. Fidget the world! This is our special Royal Limited Edition Rumble. Today, we've got 3 watches on the table. Let's get a bezeling. The Samurai has a big, bold look. Lovely knurling on that grip. Reminds me of the meat hammer I like to pound my tenderloins with. The Tuna, very nice. It looks like a very good grip. Look at that concave shape going from out to in. Reminds me of a plate. Just any plate. Okay, the scores on the look. Samurai gets a 7. The Tuna gets an 8. And the Monster also gets a 7. Okay, onto the grip. How much pressure does it take to turn the first ratchet? Is there any playback? And how easy is it to turn that bezel? Okay, for the Samurai we have a 7. For the Tuna we got a 5. And for the Monster we got a 6. And now finally the fidgetability. How much do I want to twist these bezels? Morning, noon and night. For the Samurai the referee scores 7. The Tuna 5. And the Monster 6. which leaves the final scores at the Samurai on 21, the Tuna on 18, and the Monster on 19. And it puts these watches on our leaderboard for 2021. Arrivederci, bezel lovers. Yes, I do feel that the Samurai has the best bezel overall. I love that knurling on the sides. There's no play in this bezel whatsoever, unlike the other two, and the ratcheting is much more refined than an SKX. The Tuna reminds me exactly of an SKX bezel. Not enough ratchet to it, quite stiff and not amazingly enjoyable. And I think the Monster is somewhere in between the Samurai and the Tuna.
Get your watch out.
It's style time. So all three watches look quite similar, as well as being completely different at the same time. I must say I'm drawn to the Tuna the most. I love those little raised Lume bright pips, as well as that upside down triangle at 12. I would also say that the date has been integrated the best out of all three watches. With the Monster and the Samurai's markers, they are quite similar. The Monster has those 62 mass batons, very traditional looking, nothing like the original Monster with those shark's teeth, and the Samurai has more of a trapezoid shape at the 6 and 9. With these elongated blocks, I can imagine the Lume's going to be quite good on these two. So printed on all of these watches, just under the 12 marker, we have Seiko. Then under the handset on the Monster and the Samurai, we have the Prospex logo and the words automatic and divers 200 meters. On the Tuna, we have the Prospex logo, but the words solar, divers 200 meters. Quick mention of the chapter rings. I really do love the Monsters. It's great how those hour markers are sunken into that chapter ring. We have a very detailed chapter ring on the Samurai with a 1/5 of a second marker and just your traditional minute markers on the Tuna. Okay, and onto the handset. Well, orange apparently is the best colour to see underwater, and that's why on all three watches we have an awesome bold orange minute hand. My favourite of the three is probably the Tuna again. It's similar to the SKX, but a really big arrow for that minute hand. What I would say as well, as on the Tuna and the Monster, the seconds hand reaches to the end of those markers, whereas the Samurai doesn't reach there. And for a watch with the most detailed chapter ring, you'd have to say that was a bit of a mistake. So on all three watches, we have Lume on the hour markers, the handset, and the Lume pip at the bezel. Little bit extra Lume on the Tuna. These watches use the Seiko Lume Bright technology, so we know they're gonna glow. But how much so? Yes, I do appreciate a lumed bezel.
Or a quarter of one, thank you, Tuna.
All three look magnificent. I have to say that the Samurai was the best, obviously because it has the biggest and the boldest markers and handset. So as I said at the start of the show, the Tuna is a solar powered quartz watch that you're not going to need to take the battery out anytime soon. The other two watches use Seiko's automatic
4R36 and the 4R35.
They both have a 41-hour power reserve and sweep away at 21,600 beats per hour. The only difference is this NH36 has the day complication, whereas this doesn't. So how does one of these engines run?
Welcome to the time Tardis, everybody. Time circuits on. Engage! So this Seiko 4R36 has tolerances between plus 45 seconds and minus 35 seconds per day. As you can see, we have a beat error of minus 16. It is within tolerances, but not brilliant. We have an amplitude of 259 degrees, now 264, but a beat error of 0.9. You'd like to get that as close to zero as you can, so not the best of movements, but not bad. So there you go, you'd like to keep the beat error down and the beat rate down a little bit more, but not a bad movement. That's it from me, and remember, if something can't be timed,
Spoon it.
bye!
Yes, thank you, Cedric. I mean, you're not going to get COSC certified with these watches. It's a slight lucky dip whether you get one that has a very low beat error and then one that has a little bit high. Can be easily regulated by your local watchmaker.
Also by yourself if you like dabbling around.
To operate these bad boys is lovely because each of the 3 crowns are big and grippy
and easily screwed and unscrewed.
The Tuna, we've got that traditional coin edge, decent pop when you unscrew it. The Monster, also at 4 o'clock, has more of a cog grip to it.
Cog, yeah, that's a word, cog.
The pop on this is much better than the Tuna's. But my prize for a best crown definitely goes to the Samurai. The knurling on that bezel is the same as the knurling on the crown, and I just think you get an excellent purchase. Anyway, back to the Tuna. Pop it out once and we get to set the date. Pop it out to the last position and we have hacking and you can set the time. Unscrewing the Monster, this is an automatic and we get to wind the watch up. It has the same feeling as an NH35. Not too refined, but you know you're putting power in there, you know? Pop it out once and turn it clockwise, we get to turn the day. Turn it anti-clockwise and we get to set the date. Pop it out one more time and we get hacking again and we can set that time. Similar to the Samurai, pop it out once and anti-clockwise gives us that date rollover. Pop it out to the last position and again we can hack it and we can set the time.
Hello.
Okay, what I've been waiting for, the wrist shots. First of all, the Tuna. Now look at this. I have a 6.5-inch wrist. This Tuna is definitely not as big as my SNJ025. Under 12 millimeters in thickness, you can tell that on my wrist. I think this wears awesomely. On to the Monster. Yes, slightly chunkier, and it does accentuate the boldness with that concavey bezel. I still think it fits well, and I could quite easily see myself wearing this. Finally onto the Samurai, and this is the first watch out of the 3 that looks a little bit like my dad's watch.
As in, I'm a young boy with a little wrist and I'm wearing my dad's watch.
Because of those angular lugs though, it still fits me. But out of the 3, it's probably the watch I wouldn't wear as much. Here's a little shot of me wearing them outside, and I'm not 100% sure if there is AR coating in these, but when you've got a black dial, the markers and handset pops out at you anyway, doesn't it?
What a lovely experience.
So price-wise, these watches are slightly similar. The Tuna is going to cost you £420, the Monster is going to cost £440, and the Samurai is £460. These watches are limited. There are only 5,000 of the Tunas made, 8,000 of the Samurai, and 7,000 of the Monster. So the prices are a little bit more than you would pay for the sort of base models, but to be in that exclusive club, I think it's very cool and well worth it. Here it is, my wife's first impressions of these watches. First of all, the Tuna. Reminds me of the Arnie. I really like the feel of the strap. I like the half a case shape. The bezel being black is cool. Now on to the Monster. Don't like these magnifying glasses. It makes me think of old people. It's a bit too busy for me. And finally on to the Samurai. I really like the shape of this and think it's the classiest of the 3. So my favourite watch of the 3 is the Tuna for me. I think probably because it reminds me of the SKX. It was an innovation in 1975 when it first came out. The case is so iconic looking, it cannot be confused with any other watch. And it also reminds me of my Seiko Arnie. But what was yours? I'd love to know your opinions in the comments below, what you thought of these black limited edition beauties. They go on sale on the 1st of July. Francis and Gay only have a few of these. Remember, tell them I sent you, and you could be greeted with a little something extra. From me, the Mad Watch Collector, I'll see you in a tick, 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 a tick! Every little second, every hour, every minute.